Hello and welcome to another episode of Cavell Cloud Conversations. Once again, I'm Finbarr Begley, joined by Patrick Watson, two of Cavell's best analysts slash members of the research team. Because Patrick is my boss and technically an analyst, but not always an analyst. He also manages people. But he does also run exciting events, and that is what we are on the podcast today to talk about. Why don't we start with something fun? Where in the world are you, Patrick? Because you're usually in Middle England.
No, very good. Normally, I am remotely located. I'm actually I'm in the Cavell London office on my own, which is a weird feeling. I'm in the. This isn't a virtual office background. This is an actual office background. So it's not even a virtual one.
Our office doesn't have people in on Monday. If we're being honest, it's a very rare occurrence that Monday and Friday are populated, and maybe that is just reflection of the times that were. In fact, I was reading a survey only a few weeks ago in the Financial Times that the number of mandated days that US companies had in the office had increased by 25%, and the number of actual days worked by employees It gives you an indication of how employees feel about the return to the office. I am, of course, still in lovely Dublin, at least for another bit, but then I will be returning to London as well, so we will see you all there. And speaking of London, of course, the reason and the topic for this podcast is a very nice segue.
Excellent segue.
Our upcoming event in London, which will be on the 2nd of December, looking at the enablement market. It's an annual event we do every year. Patrick, why don't you tell us about the enablement market?
Yeah, so Cavell Enable, as you said, came out of, and this is a term that Cavell coined, I think, in enablement markets. And what do we mean by that? So what we're talking about specifically is enabling telephony within specific applications, so primarily collaboration applications. So the event emerged a few years ago, primarily focused on the Microsoft telephony enablement market, so primarily Operator Connect, which is a dedicated telephony marketplace within Microsoft Teams, where you go through the Teams app, you go into a window, you say, I want to add telephony via Operator Connect, and you open it up, and there is a selection of tiles there, and you pick your operator, and in theory, everything is automated, so it's incredibly easy for you to add telephony if you're an end-user business. Go on.
One step back, just for those listeners who aren't as familiar with the market as us and might want to come to this event to learn.
Yeah.
So what we're really talking about is the fact that apps need the ability to have telephone calls operating through them, right? Whether it's an app to your bank that needs to be able to pin a button to call your bank, or it's being able to call someone in Microsoft Teams even if they're not logged into their computer and they just have their smartphone. There's loads of different reasons that building telephony into an app makes a lot of sense from a modern use case perspective. But that isn't as simple as people might think it is, because actually you needed something that manages to connect the software hosted in AWS or Azure to the actual phone line system, mobile phone network globally, and to get that data then from that network back into the app. And that is not as easy as people might think. And then also for a lot of companies, which is what you were talking about a second ago, who are global, the Vodafone Spain versus Vodafone Ireland versus Vodafone South America all operate as different companies. And if you have offices in all those companies, you need to build a unified way of having phone calling working in Teams for your company. But I think that's just a bit more accurate look back.
Really good point. So that's a really good point, and maybe I should have explained more about the market drivers of why we saw telephony marketplaces happening. So if you think effectively there are three key stakeholders within this driver for enabling telephony, and like you said, in the easiest way possible. So first of all, you've got the platform providers. So you've got, and if we look at the world's biggest collaboration application, so you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got WebEx Teams, WebEx, and you've got Zoom. So you've got the platform providers in Microsoft, Cisco, and Zoom, and they want their users of those platforms to be able to as easily as possible add telephony, which, as we know from our research, Finbarr, is not going away. As you know, one of the most important communication mediums, voice and telephony, is still incredibly important. So those vendors want their end customers to be able to add telephony as easily as possible. So that's one stakeholder and one driver. Then you've got enterprises, so businesses, who want to be easily able to add telephony to their users in the simplest way possible, and make it easy to deploy and administer that. And therefore, a market marketplace within these applications is one of the easiest way to do that. So you've got the drivers from the platform vendors and the platform manufacturer side, you've got the driver from the business side, and then if you're a telecom service provider, if you've got a network or you offer telco services, you want to be able to access that market, those businesses that are looking to easily deploy and add telephony to their WebEx Teams users, for example. So that is that you effectively have these three different areas and drivers from each of those key stakeholders that have led us to telephony marketplaces, so Microsoft Operator Connect, Zoom Provider Exchange, and Cisco Cloud Connect, which are simple marketplaces within the applications where you can quickly add telephony services. So that's the background of the event.
So now that everyone is up to speed with the broader event, and it is a fantastic event, it's in central London, it runs for the day, and we have a genuinely fantastic audience of service providers and vendors who are moving this technology. And if you're a service provider and you're thinking, I need to know about enablement, then that is the event that you should really be at. Because it will be fantastic. But now that we've given the broader context behind the enablement market and the event, why don't you tell the listeners a bit more about this year's event specifically, and what makes 2025 a year that they should become interested in enablement?
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid question. So, what I think, if we look back at a bit of history, as I said initially, this developed specifically around the Microsoft ecosystem. So people looking to add telephony to Microsoft Teams. However, we've expanded it over the last couple of years, and we look primarily at, as I said, the three most popular collaboration applications, so Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and Zoom. So now we've broadened that focus. So if you were a Microsoft house, this event was always relevant for you. If you were a Cisco or a Cisco telephony partner, maybe less so, but now it's incredibly relevant for you because that's one of our key focuses. And the same on the Zoom Provider Exchange side. All of these vendors have got these models that invite their partner networks to join these programs. So I think firstly that would be my first point in terms of that broad coverage that we've got this year across those different platforms. It's less Microsoft specific, it's across that. But if we look down to some of the individual pieces of the event, and like all Cavell events, and we talked about this when we did our review of the North American Summit, one of the key pieces and drivers is the networking capability. You're going to meet a number of your compatriots or competitors. You're going to be able to learn about best practices. As well as that, there's going to be a vast array of sponsors who help with your value-added ecosystem around these telephony enablement markets. How can you make additional money by adding additional services? So we've got both Microsoft and Zoom are gold sponsors, and we've got Gamma, Audio Codes, New Wave, and Nuso as silver, and Code Software, Magical, ITEL, Nuvius UC, and Tollring as the bronze sponsors, and all of those will talk about either from the vendor side how you maximize those platforms, or from the partner side in terms of how you can add value-added services and more quickly enable telephony. So I think we've got really broad coverage this year. If I wanted to pick out a couple of highlights, if I, Finbarr, selflessly avoid my own keynote, although I hope that will be of interest to everyone in the audience, I wanted to
best presentation at the entire show.
Well, that is that's building up.
I am joking, but we do consistently get feedback from our attendees on every single feedback form that we run that the Cavell presentations with the Cavell data are both the most interesting, engaging, and valuable sessions at all of our events. I'm not blowing my own horn. That is genuinely, and not just mine as well, everyone's panel sessions. They're like, Cavell's data is great, and the rest of the panels are great as well. But, if the rest of our panels get 4, we get 5. Yeah,
well, it's very kind of the audience to say that. So I'll be doing a keynote where we'll share some of our latest research on, how big are these markets? How many users are using Zoom Phone through Zoom Provider Exchange? How many users are using, WebEx calling through WebEx Cloud Connect? How many Microsoft Teams Operator Connect users are there? So if you're interested in market sizing and drivers.
If your business is on the fence about getting involved in the enablement market, these are the numbers that will convince your boss, your CEO.
Really good point. That business case,
that the money is there and it is worth investing, because it's not necessarily obvious that enablement is easy to pick up as a service provider, but it is one of those ways that we see service providers differentiating, generating margin, building themselves a new business case. And if you need that validation, then that's why you should come and listen to Patrick's talk for certain.
Yeah, very good point. And also, Finbarr, you and I are in the process of commissioning some specific enterprise research. So we'll be publishing some of the findings from that. So that'll be a study that we've run for the last few years of, people, end user businesses who are using these platforms, what they want to do, why they want to add telephony, why they haven't added telephony in some cases. If you look at the penetration, for example, of Microsoft Teams users, there's probably 400 million plus Microsoft Teams users. Actually, only about 25 million have added telephony. So if you look at penetration-wise, Finbarr, that's only, 5, 7, 8% of those overall collaboration users have added telephony. So one of the key questions we want to try and answer is why people haven't and what could encourage them to do that in the future. So we'll be sharing some enterprise research, which you and I are going through at the moment. And then one of the other panels I wanted to plug as well, and it comes from a friend of Cavell and Microsoft MVP Tom Arbuthnot, who is responsible for empowering cloud. And he's arranged a really excellent enterprise panel where he's brought and I don't want to give any of the names away to anyone yet, but he'll be hosting a panel where he's got 3-4 really great businesses, and he'll be asking them live on stage, what are some of why first of all are they looking to add telephony to collaboration? What are some of their issues with these telephony marketplaces? What are some of the things providers in the audience can do better? So I think in combination with the Cavell research that we've paid for and we've structured, and we'll be giving some of those findings away, we'll also get some really great insight from some really large and significant enterprises as to what their barriers are, and I think that'll be really useful to everyone in attendance in terms of better improving their provision of services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about getting those diversified views in front of people and enabling access to people that you wouldn't normally reach. I mean, we obviously have this broad network of vendors, service providers, and even enterprises that we can access and bring in front of you, as well as let you talk to in your own time if someone says something interesting. Well, Patrick, I mean, we like to keep these podcasts short and sweet, but I guess what is the final takeaway about the event that you'd like to share with the audience before we go into a bit of a wrap-up?
I think these marketplaces now represent a huge proportion of the global telephony market. We're talking about tens and tens of millions of users using these platforms. So if you're not involved in Microsoft Operator Connect, Zoom Provider Exchange, Cisco Cloud Connect, you're potentially foregoing a huge market opportunity. And I don't mean you're necessarily part of those programs. You can partner. Now there are channel options for taking on partnerships with, and you can be an indirect provider of these services. But I think it is now it's a size that you can't ignore that opportunity. And I'm hopeful, and I think we've done in the past, that Enable will really sort of shine a light on the size, how you realise that opportunity, and how you maximise it from a service provider perspective. So there's still tickets away. We're just under a month out from the event now. As you said, it'll be in central London on the 2nd of December, and we'd love anyone interested in telephony enablement within these collaborations. And the one thing I should mention as well, Finbarr, and both you and I have had these conversations, and although we're not focusing on it this year, at the moment, we're talking about telephony enablement markets within these collaboration platforms. This might come into a lot of other applications in the future. CCaaS vendors, CRM vendors have all spoken to us about setting up their own enablement markets. So if you're thinking, it's only, the collaboration, actually in the future, these might become more and more popular. So how you differentiate within these application-based marketplaces is going to be a really key consideration. And that's what Enable focuses on.
And I think to just come back to our research, right? All of our research across CCaaS, across UCaaS, across, IT decision makers, voice relevance towards how businesses operate has not changed. It has not gone away. It has not even dropped massively, right? There's a discussion about commoditization of service and how much people are paying for it and all that kind of business side stuff that we have to help service providers work around and figure out where the money's coming in, all these kind of things. But in terms of the core proposition of enablement, which is businesses and customers need to be able to get a phone call
completely agree.
Into an app or a marketplace or a website or wherever it goes, that has not changed. It has not changed, and it will not change. Phone calls are the core basis of the communications industry and business communications, and until that change, until it will never change, but until you see some marketable change there, this sort of market discussion about how we get enablement to work will be one of the most pivotal conversations in communications.
Yeah, and that's what we want to help with.
And that's my clip for the takeaways for this video. But other than that, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. As always, we like to keep our episodes nice and short, so you get a quick download on where we are, what Cavell is doing, and the latest and greatest that is happening in the cloud communications industry, both UCaaS and CCaaS and other broader industry-related topics. If you have liked this episode, please do like, subscribe, tell your friends. Tell us. We love it when people tell us if it's great. If you would like to appear on this podcast, we are currently considering whether we should start adding guests. And if you reach out to us and say, hey, I need to be on that podcast, that might help us with that discussion. Otherwise, have a great time. And we will see you in 2 weeks, and in 4 weeks in December, but also in 2 weeks on the next podcast.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.